everyone, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider.com, and I am here with director Chad Stahelski for John Wick 3. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I'm super thankful that you are here, especially in the middle of your press tour. And what you guys probably can't see on camera is there's a crowded theater. Before we get started, I want to give a huge thank you to Lionsgate for being an awesome partner and letting us screen the movie early. I want to give a huge thank you to everyone at IMAX, because IMAX is easily the best way to watch a movie. The format's incredible. You can see John Wick 3 for 1 week in IMAX starting Friday. Let's start immediately with IMAX. Any feelings?
I love IMAX. Only way to go, right, IMAX?
But I mean, in all seriousness, it's an incredible format, and if you've never seen it before, this is the movie to start on. And you can see behind us, the screen is massive. Jumping into why I get to talk to you. First, congratulations on the movie.
Thank you.
I don't want to curse, but it's effing incredible.
Well, effing thank you.
Right. So jumping backwards, you finish John Wick 2. At what point did the studio say to you, the movie comes out opening weekend, it does well. At what point does Lionsgate call you and say, hey, are you thinking about a third?
I think it was probably, maybe 2 days. Monday, Tuesday, maybe by Wednesday, we got calls say, would you be interested in thinking about number 3? And Keanu and I said, sure, give us a couple weeks to think about it. And we took a couple of weeks and we thought about it. And we said we're going to need a couple more weeks. We just want to make sure that we could come up with an idea and had some thoughts that were going to be worthy of the time and the commitment and all your fan thank you-ness. And then, I think Keanu and I, we really love the world. We love the character. I love working with Keanu. And, we went back to Lionsgate and said, I think we have a few ideas and we'd like to give it a go. And then we started development.
So at that point, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do the third movie. You guys designed such incredible action set pieces. At one point in the development process, is it like that day that you're already thinking about how are we going to top ourselves? And how, you know what I mean? Like, how does that come together?
I don't think we've ever really had the thought of how do we top ourselves. We certainly don't try to go bigger or better. We just try to do. And it's like all you guys, you have a good day, you want to have another good day. I don't know if you want to have a bigger day, but you want to have a better day. So, we have a big notebook, we have a big office with all these ideas on the wall, and some things made it to the first John Wick, some things make it to the second John Wick, and some things end up in the notebook. A lot of it is an open development. Like, we like to joke that we're incredibly back-asswards in the John Wick world. We don't write the script first. We have our vision board, the big wall with all these great pictures and photos of actors and cast we love, or references, or Latin phrases, or locations, or, picture just of a horse. Yeah, good idea. So I love architecture. I love music. So you'll have a picture of, or something that reminds you of Beethoven or Vivaldi or Haydn, and then you'll see something of, I have this big Caravaggio art. I love Renaissance art, sculptures, anything that'll spark something, and then we start crafting. We had a big picture of a desert going, Wick, suit, desert, great story. Then Keanu will go and start working with characters and threads. I told Keanu, like, look, I'd love to have this ninja guy in there. We'll call him Zero. He's the zero of everything. And he's like, that's great. I'm going to have something called an adjudicator. I'm like, that's great. I looked that word up. And it was like, okay, judge, we're going to judge this. And then, we need someone that's going to be the moral, rather than just have a Spectre-like bad guy association that's going to deal with the financials. We're going to have a moral guide to the underworld. And we're going to call him the Elder, but he's not going to be old. And we're like, okay, great, write all that down. And then I'll write a 50, 60-page story almost in book form, and then we start branching out to writers, and we start actually developing the script. But to your point, for all the ideas, it kind of comes that way. A lot of it is, as we're writing, I'll go and start scouting a city, like in number 2 it was Rome or New York, and literally I was walking through Central Park. It was almost Christmas time. It was freezing out, and I was walking with my production designer, Kevin Cavanaugh, and we're like, Jesus, it's freezing out here. Like, where do they put the horses? So we asked the guy that did one of the carriages. He's like, oh, right over there. I'm like, over where? And he's like, right across Fifth Avenue, there's a stable. And you look in, it's this, it's a brownstone. Looks like, and sure enough, you walk in, it's 4 levels of horses. And we just started smiling, going, oh, John Wick coming in here. And then, you take that, and okay, John Wick runs into stables in Manhattan. Okay, no one will believe that. That'll be fun. Great. And then I recalled this incident where, as a stunt performer way back when, I got kicked by a horse, and it wasn't as bad as what you guys just saw, but like it hurt. So I'm like, death by horse. Okay, good. We wrote that, and then Keanu's like, I love westerns. You love westerns? I love westerns. The Sergio Leone thing that we're all fans of. He's like, John Wick suit, ride a horse, right? Ride a horse. I got one better. Ride a horse through Brooklyn. Good. So we start designing stuff that way, and then, like the knife fight you guys saw, it's a culmination of who here has ever thrown a knife at a tree? Okay, did it ever stick? Yep, me neither. Hit me right in the head too. Um, so with our company, our choreography team, the 8711 guys and stuff, we try to subvert all the time. So in every action movie you've ever seen, hero picks up a knife, he throws it. What happens? Dead nuts, sticks right on. Okay, we're like, that's never happened to us. So what do you say, John Wick just misses a lot? And I grew up with my brothers in Massachusetts, and when we had a snowball fight against, I was always one, and then they were two. So you take as many snowballs as you can. You just start chucking and see win by 4. So we thought we'd have a missing snowball fight with knives, right? Snowball fight with knives, and that was the brief to the stunt team. And then we just kind of come up with ideas like that. Ride horse but not well, got it. Ride motorcycles with swords, got it.
So in the pre-production process, you're coming up with these ideas. Talk a little bit about how long it takes to actually implement these things, because I want to give credit. 8711, your company does incredible work and does incredible work for so many different movies. But so say you're going to be filming in, let's arbitrarily say June.
Mm-hmm.
When are you breaking down the set piece in terms of designing it and putting it together?
If you're talking about the martial art side of things or choreography, we start pretty early on, depending on the cast. Like Keanu will start almost 6 months out. I mean, it's not like you don't jump in and do 8 hours a day. It's like everybody here. You got to get in shape to get in shape. Nobody here can survive a 2-hour straight workout. You start with a half-hour workout, shape, hour workout. The cast is no different. To break them in slowly so they don't get injured. Everybody pulls a muscle. Everybody gets tired. You have to break them in a little far out, and then if there's a new skill set, take anybody here, to get them to do the splits might take a little bit longer than teach them how to do the judo throw. So you kind of work your way in like that. It's the other stuff that gets a little trickier. Luckily, we have Keanu, who's been in the action world for a long time. He owns his own motorcycle company. He's been on horses his whole career. He's fired weapons. He's done martial arts. So choreography is a lot tougher than you think. It's not learning martial arts, it's learning the dance. Learning with it's more like dance than any real martial art, because you have to remember the choreography, hit, act, stuff, hit, mark. That's definitely a learned skill, but again, he's good at that. It was probably the animal stuff that takes a lot. What we wanted to do with the dogs, it's okay to chat about that for a second.
Well, I want to get into the dogs, but I want to actually get something before we get to the dogs. So Halle Berry is incredible in this. When did you realize that she would be able to do everything she does in this movie? Spoiler without, I don't want to do spoilers, but she kicks a lot of ass.
Does.
And so talk a little bit about that, and then let's get into the dogs.
We haven't. It was right after the incident. I told you it was right after Christmas, and we just started working on the story and the script. And we knew we wanted a really strong counter character. We had always seen, like, we were looking for actresses for the role, and that had gone out over the wires. Like, look, this is going to be a heavily physical role. Who out there who has clients that may be interested? It's a huge commitment. It's going to be a 6-month commitment. You're not going to be able to take another job. So, and that's tricky, like in Hollywood, because people don't realize most times on a movie you get 4 to 6 weeks to rehearse fights. The bigger the name cast, the less time you have because they're booked on all these other jobs. When you start training for something like a Matrix level movie or a big superhero movie, like, that's a massive commitment. That means you can't take any more money. You can't take another job. You can't go to your kid's basketball game. You're going to live, eat, and breathe. So to find somebody like that, it's tricky, that wants to commit. And then I got a call from WME saying, Halle Berry would like to meet with you. Really? Right. When? Today. Okay, great. Send her down. Literally, Halle was at my door a couple hours later, and I had never met her. And Halle came in and said, look, I'm a big fan of the first 2 John Wick. I'd like to be in your movie. I'm like, I'm flattered. That's amazing. But just, we haven't written the script yet. She's like, no, I don't care. I'm like, yeah, well, I think your agents would probably care, like, there's no script. I don't even know what the character's name is yet. She's like, that's okay. We can figure that out. I'm really going to be in your movie. And and I was trying to be, somewhat cool, but again, Halle Berry. It's hard to say. No, like I was really flattered, and she looked amazing. She was in incredible shape, and she's like, "I'm gonna be in your movie." And I'm like, "Well, okay." She's like, "No, I'm serious. You're not understanding." And I tried to give her an out, going like, "Look, I'll get back to you when we have the script. We'll work around it. We'll start writing the part." She's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's all great, but I'm going to be in your movie." Like, it's gonna be 6 months of training. She's like, "Great, when do I start?" I'm like, "No, like you don't understand the diet. It's gonna be fun for a week, then it's just gonna suck. Like the diet, the 3 times, there's 3 different workouts you have to do. You have to do this dog training thing. You have to do the martial arts. You have to go to firearm training. Then you have to go to stunt teams." She's like, "Yeah, yeah, I got it." I'm like, everybody says that, but no one gets it. And like, yeah, she never missed a day. So I don't know if she hired me or I hired her, but that's kind of like that.
I got to tell you, the level, what she does on screen is very impressive. And now let's, without getting into any spoilers, in the trailers and images you've seen, she has dogs.
It does.
And so I don't want to say exactly what happens on screen, but what she did to have those dogs perform the way they did on screen is crazy. And I don't think a lot of people know what she did. And you could sort of talk about that.
I guess again, if people don't know, when an animal, any type of animal that you see on screen, they don't know it's a movie. You guys get that? Right? There's no such thing as a movie dog or a movie. They've been trained to do certain things in a movie environment, but they're animals. They don't come out of their trailers. They don't, they're animals. So when you see a dog do a dog attack on screen in a film, that's actually a dog trying to injure a human being. They don't know what to play. They're actually attacking a human. And then either the trainer or the stunt person is in Kevlar gear or body armor, and they're trying to survive. That wasn't going to work for us. We figured that it wasn't going to do well. For those of you that haven't been on a set before, it's a pretty chaotic place. There's background going around, at any given time with 30, 40 stuntmen. We have multiple animals on set, firearms, a lot's going on, cameras running everywhere. And most of the time when you see a dog attack on screen, it's, what is it, a wider shot or a tight shot, it's one person being attacked by one dog. So we just said, how can we make this the most impossibly hard thing that we could do? So we tried to do it the way you've just witnessed on screen. But what it would have to take is, after we talked to Andrew Simpson, he's the guy that does all the wolves on Game of Thrones, probably, in my mind, the best animal trainer in Hollywood, anywhere in the world right now. He's just like the dog whisperer. But we said, look, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do real tracks. Is there a way to start from scratch and train these animals to actually be part of the stunt, to actually teach them jiu-jitsu moves and do all this stuff and have them acclimated? He's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Take a year of your life, and you'd have to go find special dogs, and you'd have to have a stunt team and a cast that was willing to work with them for 5 to 6 months. And I went, okay. And that's it. And we spent all our money training dogs for a year. So Andrew went around the United States, found 5 Belgian Malinois, Belgian Shepherds, from different military installations that had not yet begun their training. And he found them with the physical and mental and personality aptitude that we were looking for. And we got 5. And it started literally 3 weeks later, where the dogs were trained with the trainers first. Then we brought in the first dozen stuntmen to train with them all the time. The dogs know you by smell or acclimate. So when the dogs are released, everyone says they love dogs until there's a 110-pound animal trying to bite you. Then you have some reserves, and the dogs recognize that. So we found the stuntmen that had the best mental aptitude towards animals that were angry. And the dogs and them became very, very close friends. And after that, we had to acclimate the dogs to the cameramen and to the firearms, to all the noise and sound that were going off. And then because we shoot wider and we try to do a lot of intricate long takes, just like we do with the martial arts stuff, the dogs needed to stay in the shot, which, if you don't know, they can't have leashes on them, or the trainer can't be right off camera. So why? So rather than have trainers in green suits, we just had Halle be the trainer. We taught Halle not only to be friends with the dog, take the dogs home, to live with the dogs, to feed the dogs, to cuddle and play with the dogs, but to actually train and command them on set. So when you see her on screen giving the Arabic words of commands, she's actually. So that took a little while.
I don't want to obviously get into the specifics of the film, but I think in the trailers you've seen it's part of the Morocco set piece. And I think we would all agree, you all just saw the movie without spoilers, that set piece is jaw-dropping. It's crazy what you do, and there's always 2 dogs doing stuff. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie do what you did.
Yeah, no, Yeah, forget. Well, we kind of call it porn. Sorry, there's martial art porn, gun porn, sword porn. We just it's our little way of. That was like our. We wanted anyone to know that's worked with animals before. Like, yeah, we didn't cheat this. Like, there's 2 dogs on. We wanted to pan off them, come back, and kind of show you that yeah, we're not goofing around, and it wasn't a digital dog. It was all real dog. It was a lot of time and effort put in, but like I don't know. There's something impressive to me about actually seeing performances like that. That's why Keanu does as much of the action as can. Why we overtrain our cast to be part stunt performer as well, and we wanted the same work and the same kind of credibility out of the animals in the film as
Uh, I want to talk a little bit about the editing process. When you're putting together, let's arbitrarily say the Morocco sequence with Halle and Keanu fighting, talk a little bit about how much is that all figured out on set in terms of how you're going to be cutting it? How much is it working with your editor? Because some of the editing, I mean, it's all about the editing to put
well.
something like that together.
Again, I'm a big fan of live performances, live dance, or old musicals, or exhibitions, anything like that. And that's why I shoot the way I do. It's not really a fuck you back to anyone going like we don't use shaky cam. We don't use. I have nothing against shaky cam. I have nothing against tighter shots or fast editing. It's just that's not what we would try to do in John Wick. So rather than how most people do it, we'll teach the cast, come in, the cameraman see it on the day. They try to capture as much as they can for the time they have, and then the editor figures it out. Way back in prep with the rehearsals, I'll have my cameraman come to rehearsals 3 or 4 months out, so they're acclimated. I have my cinematographer come there so he knows where to put the wider you shoot, you limit your other departments. If you're not telling your cinematographer that you're going to shoot wide and do this long dolly shot, he's got nowhere to put his lights. So now he's scrambling to try and make that work. And then the cameraman, you've just asked the stuntman to rehearse 2 months, but the cameraman rehearsed for an hour on most films, and that's why you get that kinetic sense because they're missing. They're trying to find it. And the wardrobe guy, he hasn't prepared because he hasn't seen it, so he's only got one suit, so you can't script that suit, and that's how it all starts to go to shit. So we're like, okay, that's happened too much. We're going to treat this like a live show. Everybody's coming to the rehearsals 3 months out. So the editor's there. He understands. Evan Shift is my editor. He's been my editor for the last 2 films. We like what we call symmetrical editing. 90% of the scenes in John Wick, whether action or not, will start very wide, medium, tight, tight, medium, wide, and they'll be symmetrical. We find that interesting because it feels like you're bringing the audience in. It's almost like a slow push. Like you guys are sitting right now and you're watching the screen. Here in IMAX, the screen's a little bigger, so it's a little bit more what we're trying to do. If it was more of a regular screen, you could just take it all in without panning your head. With IMAX, you can sit here and you kind of got to search the screen a little bit to follow the action. That's kind of what I'm trying to get when we do the editing style that we're doing. It's not so much of a massive perspective shift like going over the shoulder, and flip-flopping the angles. It's slowly bringing you into the scene and slowly letting you come out. It just makes you relax and become more observant of what's going on. And that's kind of the editing style that Evan and I have always tried to try to get with the action. So it's like you're sitting in a live theater just watching the performance. You're just, there's the guy on the stage, and there's the guy on the stage. And, oh, look, there's something going on down here. And that's what we talked about quite a bit. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, like, a lot of times, especially because I shoot on actual locations, you know what? There's a lot of times I have no idea. Like, zero. Like, we lost 3 locations in Morocco. We lost in Marrakesh. We lost in Fez. Finally, we found the town that we shot in, Aswara, that we played for Casablanca. And we got our first location. We're ready to go. And I don't know if you can tell by that, but it's a huge fishing village. So when we got there in the summer after having scouted it, well, we didn't realize how much fish was being brought in every day. And there's over 1,000 cats when we got back there. Okay, I don't know if you know anything about dogs and cats, but, like, they're distracting to each other. So we literally had to hire 30 cat wranglers, clean out the fish market, and it got so crazy that we had to move locations to the next square over. And that changed the configuration. So while we know patterns and sequences, it took the stunt team another day. Like, we didn't sleep for a weekend just trying to reconfigure it so we could figure out our camera angles. So it's, in answer to your question, it's as set and it's as organized and planned out as we can make it, always having that 10% planning to be as organic and as liquid as possible to make room for changes. Again, we don't try to teach the cast 10 moves and hope they remember it. We have a little motto: the best way to fake being good is just to be good. So we try to just train them as stunt performers, and we don't worry about just having them memorize 10 moves. So we want them to be able to change and adapt on the day. So you'll hear Halle still gives me quite a bit of shit. She's like, we train for 5 months and then we make it up on the day. And that's not far from the truth. Like, she was taught all the pieces and has this toolbox of sequences and moves. And then I might go, okay, take section 1, put it over at 4, 4 over here, 5 here, 3's not working. I very much like a dance choreographer. We'll change routines, but the background will know their pieces, and we just move and mix to make it feel more organic. And sometimes I do it just to liven things up.
I'm curious, how long was your first cut compared to the finished film?
The director's bane.
For people that don't realize, the first cut is where you put everything in there, and then just to see what you have. And the first cut can sometimes be very long.
What's the great quote? If you don't have enough to throw away, you don't have enough. So I think our first one came in at, and I was pretty proud to get it down to 2 hours and 44 minutes. 2:44 was, I think, 2:45 was my director's assembly. And then the director's cut, which was much better, was like 2 hours and 29 and a half minutes. And I was really proud of that.
And is that something that, like, you were, the 2:29 cut, was that something that, like, you were like, oh, you could watch this? Or was it like, oh, no, we still have a way to go?
I could watch that. But I could watch like a Jackie Chan video all day long. You know what I mean? I still love Lawrence of Arabia. I still love the old 70s films where, like, running time was not an issue. Like, that was your Sunday. Like, I'd go with my mom and dad to the movie theater, and it's like, all right, bring it. And then you'd watch Lawrence of Arabia like twice, and there's 6 hours gone. So, like, I have a different kind of endurance for that. But, like, it was definitely watchable. It just, for you guys and for everybody else, like, pacing. The two biggest things that a director's really got to worry about is always tone. Like, what tone are you writing? Is this funny? Is it comedy? You don't want to confuse emotionally the audience too much unless that's your goal. And then pacing, like, you want to give action, like, you guys know, like, you watch any action movie, there's a lot of, like, John Wick is a great example. First one, there wasn't a single piece of action for 22 minutes. Like, can't even talk for 22 minutes. Like, we knew that going in, we're going to mess with pacing. And then it goes, and you're like, oh, this is weird. And then it goes. Like, we wanted to have that jump start. Number 2 is different. We started hot and got really slow just to let everybody goes, Jesus, this is boring. And then, boom, okay, we'll wake you back up. Number 3, I was trying to be, again, I'm somewhat of a new director, so I like messing with things and still trying. We wanted to keep it going. You can feel the first 20 minutes are like nonstop. There's a ticking clock. And then it's like, put on the brakes, let's talk. And give you some story and show you some of the world. And then there's, when he gets back in New York, it's, okay, fasten your seatbelts, here it goes. And that's the fun part. I mean, I don't think you can have a really interesting, fast-paced action movie without having what I would not consider slow, but definitely, put the brakes on for a little bit and enjoy the film. I love the experience of sitting in a movie theater and watching. I love a live show. Like, I mean, Hamilton had slow parts. It didn't stop me or anybody else from seeing it. I thought it was great. Every good dance performance has those really dynamic, flashy moves, and then it has this intimacy that, sucks you into the performance. And that's all we try to get here.
I'm assuming that what was the last sequence you cut out of the movie that, like the last thing that almost made it into the finished cut, and why did you take it out?
Good question. The last thing we cut out. There's a scene, Randall Duck Kim, the doctor, that John Wick helps out and thanks so well. He had a scene with the adjudicator, and it was an interesting scene because he was punished for his helping John Wick. And while it's fun, it's good, we had to keep intercutting back and forth between John in the desert back to New York. And we just felt it was one transition too many, and it kind of stopped what was already a slow act. So we kind of took that out to help move things forward to get to New York a little quicker.
Was that sequence like over a minute, or was it something
even
shorter?
It was like 90 seconds.
Oh,
minute and a half. It wasn't a lot, but like, when you're watching something and there's a rhythm going, 90 seconds can feel like 10 minutes.
You must have test screened the movie. I'm curious,
Many times.
What did you learn from those test screenings that impacted the finished film?
People's tolerance of headshots. No, honestly, you test screen against wide demographics. We did a blind testing for people that don't know. They purposely screen out people that like action movies or have seen John Wick 1 or 2. So that audience, 1, doesn't like action movies and had never seen John Wick 1 or 2. So interesting notes, some interesting reactions of, ooh, wow, why? Which is good, but you also learn things about, even though they weren't action fans, and it was a few hundred people, it was like, seeing Halle Berry in the role, the world building, the color, at least, I got a couple, well, at least it was competently made, so that's good. I feel good, like my editing and my lighting was successful and the camera wasn't too wacky, so that was good. My choice of wardrobe was okay. They made us understand, like, we're what we call hyper real in John Wick. It's a little over the top, so they kind of got the theatrics and what we were trying to do in terms of creating a, basically a live action anime or live action video game. So they got that, and you also get a real sense of what they can endure, and I mean that in terms of what we were just talking about, pacing. What they're willing to sit through when it's not one of your interests or passions. And that really helps because, like, I got a lot out of it, actually. Actually, I was really against the studio for making me do it. I was kind of angry about it. But at the end...
I've never seen you angry.
I'm a pretty angry guy. But I put into my work. No, you learned a lot as far as I'm concerned about pacing and tempo of how we were doing things. So while I didn't take many notes about cutting out, it was literally like 40 minutes of action they wanted me to cut. Wasn't going to do that. The body count is over 100. It's going to stay over 100. But it was good, and there were some logic questions that was nice to test that they actually understood, having not seen the first two films. So it was educational, for sure.
So did you because you did a few test screenings, did anything else through all the test screening process impact the finished film? Or
Yeah, oh, no. We, up until, I think you guys... Yeah, really, the version you guys just saw now was the first time we had the ending we had. We had a very different ending up until literally a month and a half ago. That shot, the final scene.
Oh, I want to.
The final scene with the characters involved was new. So there's that.
I'm trying to protect the movie.
Mine was a much more abrupt ending, if you can put your heads around that one. It just didn't resonate well. It didn't have the impact I was hoping for. So yeah, you talk about it and you try to come up with a better way of ending the film. That was a big thing, and trying to think what else we had. No, that was the main thing. It was just really about the ending. Like we knew we had something fairly decent. It's just, okay, you want to leave the movie with everyone going, okay, I'm satisfied, but what's next? And there's a million things I could say about the ending and why we end all these chapters like we do, and mostly because it's a chapter.
Sure. You and Keanu obviously have a great relationship. While making the third movie, what was the biggest fight you had and why? If you had one.
No, we don't really fight. We've known each other for a long time. We've been kicking the shit out of each other for 20 years.
Or was there a strong disagreement over something? Because I'm just going to interject and say there's a glass house in this movie.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky, and I got to do a set visit, and I watched Keanu do stunt after stunt after stunt after stunt. It's unbelievable what he's willing to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, at one point, does he ever just say, okay, enough, I got, you know what I mean?
Not in 3 films. I haven't seen it. And nor I did 3 Matrixes with him. I helped him out when he directed Man of Tai Chi, and I did Constantine with him. And now 3 John Wicks, and I've never seen him not get back up.
It's crazy.
He's a he's a very impressive man. He's my favorite human to work with on the planet. I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. He's incredible. We'll disagree with motivations sometimes. Like, I don't think it was an argument, but how to do the scene in the tent with the elder and what that was supposed to mean and all that stuff. That was a point of big discussion, and the ending was probably our 2 biggest discussions. But they were all very constructive and positive. I mean, he is the most non-confrontational. You see him in John Wick, but I swear he's incredibly non-confrontational. He's the most collaborative cast member I've ever worked with. I mean, I sit here as, the title says director, but, co-collaborator and co-creator is definitely Keanu Reeves.
Which action set piece in the film gave you nightmares?
Horses, man. Horses. They're tricky. No, the horse thing was good, and at the end of the day, I got to put my lead actor on a horse that's going 35 miles an hour down, the elevated train to Brooklyn, and we rehearse and we do things. We put safety lines on. We do a million different things, but shit happens sometimes. And you try. It's always nerve-wracking. And Keanu has a healthy respect of everything we do, but he just doesn't know how to say no. So sometimes you have to watch that. and the horses just wouldn't. I mean, we were supposed to be getting to make that sequence work the way we wanted, and we only got half the sequence that was planned. We needed to be getting 10 to 15 setups a day. Setup is part of the section of the sequence. And on day one, I mean, we only have the elevated train in Brooklyn. It's summer, which was even dumber for me to shoot during the summer. So I have like 8 hours of darkness, and I think we got one setup by 4 a.m. So like day 2, I was already a day behind. So that was pretty bad, and that's because the horses just wouldn't. They didn't want to come out of their trailer that day. Yeah, it was just, animals have a bad day. When they're done, and they just weren't responding. So we had to like calm them down, take them back to the stables, bring out the second set of horses from LA, and then try it again. And that's when it started working.
I believe Darren Prescott was your second unit director.
Good friends with him.
I believe, if I remember correctly, when you were filming the movie or getting ready to film the movie, there were a few set pieces that he was still trying to figure out. How are we going to film this thing? Was it the horse stuff? Was it the motorcycle stuff? What were the sequences that you guys were, because you've been doing this a very long time, and Darren's been doing it a long time. So for you guys to be struggling means like it's holy shit hard.
Yeah, I mean, when you write character rides horse, does this, 2 motorcycles crash, your head goes, okay, we'll use the stunt doubles here, we'll CG his face, we'll do a face replacement here. And then, the more than, arrogant and difficult director says, no, we're not going to use a double, we're not going to use that, we're going to have Keanu Reeves do it. That throws a wrench in the thing. So when I told Darren, like, no, we're going to do this, let's figure out a way to do it. So the first one was a horse thing, how do you get Keanu on and do it safely and not kill your lead cast member? Because they didn't want to do that. That was a little tricky, and him and our stunt coordinator, Scott Rogers, figured out a traveling safety rig that went above Keanu and all the horses, and they still crashed the motorcycles live and did all that stuff. So that was pretty impressive. That they figured out relatively quickly, like within the first 2 months. And then when the motorcycle sequence, again, you have a lead actor that can ride a motorcycle better than most stuntmen. And then you close down the longest suspension bridge in the United States, the Verrazano. And then you got to give all the stunt guys swords. And then you got to try not to stab each other as you're going 65 miles an hour. Little tricky. We saw this movie a couple years ago called The Villainous. Have any of you guys seen The Villainous? Great film. Great film. Hey, what's going on? I know this guy. I know this guy forever. You look good, man. I just talked to your brother today. Sorry, tangent. Yep. His brother was the one that got the thing in the head. Yeah. Anyways, when we had to do that sequence, Villainous is a great movie, so we thought, okay, that's great, and we got to talk to the director. I got to talk to the director and some of the people that made it, and we were really impressed by how they did the digital stitching between live action and CGI. And we thought, this is great. John Wick, as you can tell, is an ode to a lot of the favorite action films they did, from Kurosawa to Leone to Bertolucci to Tarkovsky to Jackie Chan, all the way through some of the Bruce Lee films from the second film. So we thought it'd be a good idea to, we love 2 great Asian films or from Asian cinema, The Raid with Gareth Evans, we love that. So you can see Chep Chep and Ye Yen in there. And The Villainous. So we're like, okay, we're going to do this. And then we started sitting down, we watched The Villainous, like, oh, that's awesome. You know what? That's great. But we had no idea how they did it. And we tried to break it down, and we're like, this is really good. They did a great job. So it took a little while to figure it out, and then how to do it a little bit more live action than even they had tried, and to put our lead actor in it. They did something very cool and sneaky by putting helmets on everybody, so you didn't know who was who. We took the helmet off and said, you're going to see this guy. And that took a lot more planning than we thought it was going to take, and about 2 months of rehearsals between the soundstage work and the live action stuff.
You co-directed the first John Wick, and you've done the John Wick 2 and 3. What do you think you've learned as a director from the first film to now the third film? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Look, before we did that, Dave and I both had a good solid 10 years of second unit and action directing behind us. And, you're directing big action, you're directing cast, everybody from Will Smith to Brad Pitt to Keanu to Schwarzenegger to Stallone. We had done so much work on the Expendables and some of the superhero things in Marvel movies. We were pretty arrogant, or let's say confident, I guess. That, we got this, no problem, we're going to start going in. But the ability to talk to cast and really hold true to that thread of what the character is doing when you're shooting out of order is, it's an amazing skill set that you have to have. You have to track things that you never really had to worry about as just an action guy. the idea of blocking and saying something with the camera, other than just catching a big explosion or following a car chase, is always challenging. Like, what are you saying? Are you moving the camera just to move the camera? Are you trying to say something? Are you trying to capture an emotion? Are you trying to bring something out in the story? We're big silent movie fans, which are amazing. They brought up a lot of stuff without editing or without a lot of talking or exposition. So we just tried to keep that the motif on the first Wick of, we're going to show you, not tell you. And that was a big thing. And then we realized about, I don't know, maybe 3 days in that, we're not as good as we thought. With cast. So luckily we had Keanu on our side that says, hey, you're going to be working with Willem Dafoe next week. You might want to get your shit together. And I'm like, yeah, that's a really good idea, man. So let's get Dummy's Guide to How to Direct. No, we got in and just you start learning that you just don't say go again. You don't just say that was great, hit your mark. Like, how do you really talk to them to bring out what's on the page and really explain what's going and do your homework? And we had a pretty good idea about that, but like we really had to hone our skills. So we kind of cracked down and really started working with the cast a lot more than we did. It's the same thing, you know, like we're great at putting a camera somewhere, great at action, but like, can you tell a story? Can you tell a story the way you want to tell it so it's not just forced through editing? And that was a big thing. And then in post, which is a whole other world that most action directors don't have to deal with, it's the things that we were just talking about. Is like, how do you maintain the tone of your film? Because the original John Wick was much darker and much more grounded, and we wanted a funner film. So how do you maintain, you know, basically killing a puppy and have fun? Like, that's a trick. And then, you know, and then with pacing and how to keep things grounded, how to give a little emotion to something, and how to make it, you know, kind of pace through and move through the action. You know, again, this is just my third film, so I'm a bit of a new director. Still constantly learning, trying to expand what you know, accept that, you know, I mean, there isn't a day I didn't go to set and literally thought I was going to shit my pants. I mean, what's a better way to say? I was scared every day. Like, you don't want to fail. You don't want to make mistakes. You don't want to be caught up not knowing how to do something because you didn't do your homework or because you didn't read enough or because you didn't research enough or because you didn't think about it enough. So, yeah, it's terrifying. But you just can't be afraid of being afraid, and you just got to try, and you got to keep experimenting. And when something goes south, you got to correct it and try again the next day. You know, it's like learning anything else, I guess.
Which I would imagine you guys have designed a whole bunch of set pieces between the three films. Mm-hmm. Is there a set piece that came this close to actually being in a movie that got cut out for whatever reason?
Oh, I've been trying to build a glass house for 3 movies. It just costs a lot of money. I love optical illusions. Anybody that watches Magicians Live or some of the bigger guys, they know you can use glass as to refract or reflect. And that's always fascinated me about, you can see in all the John Wicks we do gags with reflection. And I think that's the duality of that, reflections, all that stuff is fascinating to me as a thematic and in human nature. So we try to put a little of that in everything. That's why you see the glass house or the mirror room in number 2 and the glass house in number 3. But I love that idea of being able to see and not hide anything. And you don't see wires, you don't see the camera, you don't see anything. It just feels expansive to me, and it feels retro at the same time as, you know, slightly futuristic. I don't know, it's a cool vibe.
What was it like telling the studio or your producer about the glass house or the glass in this movie, and were they like, no?
No, there's a lot of tears. Yeah, no, they kind of look at you like, that's great, so how much are you actually going to build? They're like, they give you the nod like, yeah, that's really cool, yeah, how big does it have to be? And then you start doing the numbers, and they go, okay, so do you really need all 4 floors? Well, maybe I could do 3. And you always ask for more because you know you're going to get squeezed. So I got 2 floors, and I started with 4, and it was much bigger when I started. But yeah, no, they were good. You got to fight for what you want. That comes at a cost. You know, the original schedule for this film was, I had 67 days, and then you start baseball card trading. You start going, okay, I ended up shooting the whole movie, including Morocco and the additional photography, in 56. So where do those days go? Well, you trade the money of those days to get bigger sets or a cast member or more camera. Like, you constantly got to deal with the budgetary restraints because there are financial limitations to what you're making. So fortunately enough, I had 2 great producers, a unit production manager and a line producer that were very good at helping me manage what I had. And that's how we got the glass house.
I think that one of the things that the award season always overlooks is stunt work. And I'm just curious, what do you think it will take to get stunts treated seriously for what they are, because they're incredible. They make movies.
No, I would caveat my answer by, look, I love stunt people. I was one. I came up with one. I think I have one of the best stunt teams in the industry for fight choreography and for what our guys do. I think the industry does. It's not like the industry or the academy, for that matter, is against stunt people getting an award. There's just a small difficulty with it. Meaning, okay, who do you give the award to? I mean, the first answer is always, oh, well, do you give it to the performer that did the stunt? Do you give it to the choreographer that choreographed the stunt? Do you give it to the stunt coordinator that budgeted and scheduled the stunt? Do you give it to the director that came up with the idea? Do you give it to the editor that cut it? I've seen great stunt work go to shit with bad editing. I've seen a great performance, amazing in person. The cameraman didn't get it right, or they shot too tight or too loose. I've seen, I've been in the room with some great directors that, I came up with the Wachowskis. I can tell you as a fact, they designed their own action. So who would you give the award to?
Something I'd never actually thought. With what you're saying right now, you've given me a different thought process.
I'm all for it, 100% for it. I think the department in itself should be recognized through the academy. Absolutely. I just don't know what would be the fairest way to do it.
What have you seen in the last number of years, or in your career? What stunts have you seen that you're like, holy F?
Yeah, there's been some good ones. I like sequences, so I don't look at a particular stunt. I look at a sequence, like what's a great car chase, what's a great fight scene, what's a great, I love Casino Royale. I love the opening of that. I thought the free running of the parkour with that was, the way they shot it and cut it was very exciting. The way Daniel Craig in was great. One of my best friends, Tim Rigby, did the base jump off the Corvette in the first Triple X. And I think that's probably the best stunt in the last 20 years.
Okay. The beginning of this movie has Keanu fighting a very tall gentleman.
Boban.
Talk a little bit. I mean, the sequence is incredible. Talk a little bit about putting, again, spoiler free, but talk a little bit about putting this thing together, because you can't double someone who's 7 foot whatever.
No, I couldn't figure out what I want. I needed a couple more set pieces, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So I'm a big fan of walking around New York, and I ended up in the New York Public Library just wandering around. I was like, oh, screw it. Let's just shoot here. And I was like, this would be a great place. And then the same thing, we try to subvert. So we're in this big open space, and you could put as many stunt guys as you want in. I ended up wandering through the stacks, and I was like, this is great. Let's do it in a tight space like this, but let's not do it with a regular size stuntman. Let's supersize, and we'll find the tallest, biggest guy that could barely fit in the library, and that'll be the way we'll open the film. That'll be funny. It'll be great. It'll be the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bruce Lee version of Game of Death. We're like, this is going to be great. Except we couldn't find an 8-foot tall stunt guy. And I lamented my issue to a producer. And I know absolutely zero about the NBA. I mean, I'm not good with balls. So I stay away from, football, basically. I don't know anything about it. But he came in and was like, okay, great. What you need is Boban. And I was like, what's a Boban? And he's like, he brought up the videos of Boban at the time he was playing for the Clippers. And I was like, this is great. This guy looks amazing. He's great size. And, but can he act? Can he do anything? And he had done some commercials over in Europe. And I was like, oh, he's got some charisma. He's got this great thing. And apparently he has the biggest hands in the NBA. So from a choreographer standpoint, I'm like, perfect. The hand, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We got this. So Boban flew from LA to New York. We gave him a 2-week stunt test with the stunt team, and he was great. And then we had him read Dante, which was pretty funny. And no, he did great. He had no problem with it, and the stunt team gave him the thumbs up. We put him in the library, and we had the talk. And I'm like, look, I know you're a professional athlete, but you're 8 feet tall. There's going to be no stunt doubles. It's going to be a 14-hour day. Are you okay? He's like, yep. And he was pretty good. He's a sweetheart of a guy. He actually had to kick the stunt man that you saw in there, and he didn't want to touch him because his shoe is a size 27. So it went from crotch to nose, so you couldn't just put a pad right here. And he was a little tentative, and Keanu's stunt double, a guy named Jackson Spidell, who's a fantastic stuntman, just like, no, just kick me. And Boba's kind of looking at him like, have you seen my foot? I'm like, no, maybe you should just and one not so good. And we had we could do this all day, but it's going to be better if you just kick him. And that's the take that's in the movie. Just once. And we thought he was going to land there, and he kind of landed way over there. Even Jackson got up and went, wow. I was like, all right, pretty good.
It's a great opening to the film.
Thanks.
I think
Funny.
I think most people would enjoy.
Thanks.
I'm curious. There's been a lot of talk at the studio and just about expanding the John Wick universe, the Continental. What is the status of other stuff besides the feature films?
Right now, they're trying to do a TV show called The Continental. It's based on the John Wick universe with John Wick, the character, passing in and out. Currently, it's in development. They're trying to get it all right, but they are working on the scripts and the episodes and stuff. It's currently with Stars, which is Lionsgate and Stars right now. But from what they've sent idea-wise to myself and Keanu, it sounds really, really fun. They've got a really great take on it, and they're currently in developing.
This is not about John Wick, but you've talked many times about Highlander, and I'm just curious, where are you at in the development of that?
The magic word of development. I love Highlander. I love the original. I love the whole thing about it. You guys like Highlander? Yeah. All right, cool. I figure we did guns, so let's try swords, right? No, I love the theme of immortality. I love the idea of love through time. I love the idea of burdens of immortality, about how the only people you can really trust and bond with are the ones that want to chop your head off. I think that's fascinating. It's something we've been working on now for 2 years. It's something I want to continue to work on. I just think it's a very deep universe there. And I think what happened, and again, I'm just assuming from the original, is once you say there can only be one, and then you get down to one, and then you try to make sequels, that becomes difficult. So we're trying not to back-end ourselves into that and create a proper story that we can build off of.
I want to make sure that people in the audience have a chance to ask some questions. I have another thing I want to ask, but does anyone have any questions that they want to ask? So we can probably get like 6 people or so right over there. So if a few people want to go over there, and there we go. We'll see what happens. But real quick, while they're getting in line, what TV show would you love to guest direct?
Wow. There's 3 I've been really impressed with. I wasn't originally a Game of Thrones fan, but I think there's a couple in there that I was impressed by. If that was still going on, I'd like to take a stab at something like Battle of the Bastards. I thought that was incredibly well done. I swear to you, I just watched 2 episodes of Cobra Kai, the 2nd season this morning. Fucking genius. I love Johnny. I think it's so simple and yet so twisted in how they did it. And then I've been watching a lot of Barry. I think Barry's awesome. I think just in the simplicity and the funny and the darkness of, I think Barry would be my choice to answer your question.
If you were not watching Barry, Bill Hader's Barry on HBO, phenomenal. Yeah. And the episode that was just on the other night was jaw-dropping.
Yep.
Yeah,
big fan.
Let's open it up to the audience.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm curious about your expanded roster of writers that you had on this movie as opposed to the first 2, and kind of how the story developed after the brainstorm that you mentioned at the beginning, and kind of how you assembled that team as the process continued.
Good question. Again, in the first film, when Dave and I came on board, John Wick was written by a guy named Derek Kolstad. He's the creator of the John Wick thing that you see his name up there. John Wick was originally 65 years old, a retiree from Cold War with a 10-year-old German Shepherd. And he killed, I think, 3 people in the first script. That changed. I think it was the idea, Derek brought some really the gold coins were part of it, but it was more of a Cold War. It was based more on practical stuff. Like if you were a spy from the Cold War, you wouldn't have cash. You'd have gold bullion that you could trade in any country, non-denominational, that kind of thing. He had hidden a gun behind a brick fireplace. So there was things, and there was an old hotel in it that was called the Continental that had the concierge and had this secret little speakeasy underneath, but it was much more grounded. And I'm a huge fan of Greek mythology and all that, and obviously you can see the references and the names we use on the characters. And that's what we wanted to kind of hyper-stylize and comic book it and animate it out a little bit. that was an idea we all kind of got on, and Derek jumped right on board with it, and we started doing all the Greek and Roman god mythology study and kind of twisting it like that. And at the end, there was kind of a happy ending, I guess you could say, in the original script. Then after Keanu got involved, we got involved. It all became much more twisted and odd. It's a world of bad guys. My point being is, when you write a script, most of your action movies are, the guy's an assassin, but he's got a good heart. Something happens to his wife, and then he redeems himself. And we go with a little bit more of the darker, fabulistic themes of not so much redemption, but fate and karma and grief and obviously consequence. That you do bad things happen to you, and that's never going to change. And that's kind of why we end the movies like we do, because there is no, in our mind, riding off into the sunset. There's no, it's not going to get better, and he's not going to get rewarded. So, to your point, different writers bring different things to it. So that's kind of how we got the different writers.
Hey,
Hi.
loved it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm really curious because you have X amount of years. You have so many years of like experience with choreography and doing stunt work and all that amazing stuff. And I know you're booked for like the next 5+ years or so with all your different projects. But like,
I hope. I don't know. I could
same.
I could be working with you on Monday. I don't know.
That being said, are there any like musicals you have in mind that you'd like to tackle at all, whether they be like reboots or things from Broadway?
That's
or
funny.
originals?
We did the premiere in New York a couple days ago, and I sat right next to Lin-Manuel. You guys know who that is? Hamilton's one of my all-time favorites. I didn't know. I sat next to him, literally sat next to him, and he was cheering louder than anybody else in the theater. So we ended up with a great conversation afterwards. And you guys know who Bob Fosse is?
Yes.
Winner of the Triple Crown, probably the only man out there that's ever won the Emmy, the Oscar, and the Tony in the same year. I'm a huge fan of Bob Fosse's and his career and what he's done, from all that jazz all the way on to Pippin. I think that's amazing. Anybody that comes to our place and 5 minutes talking to me knows that I love dance choreography, and that's where I steal most of the ideas for martial art choreography. Sooner or later, somebody else will catch on, I'm sure. But for right now, I think we're the only ones that train that way. The answer to your question is yes. I think to be able to express yourself at one of the most base levels of human experience or nature, which is dance, to have that and be able to tell stories, not just that are musical or meant just for the sake of being a musical, but actually tell a story that way, like up on Lionsgate. I think that would be a directorial challenge that I'd like to take. I know it sounds funny coming from the action guy and stuff, but I would love to. I would absolutely love to. If the script was written by someone that was trying to say something more than just let's dance and sing.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it'd be a great fit.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi there. I just wanted
Hi.
to know, as far as the romantic aspects between John and his wife, and we used to see a lot more flashbacks in the first one. Can you see more of that happening towards John Wick 4? Do you think that maybe, his wife could still be alive? Is that even a possibility? Or
I think
or
she's
bringing back?
I think she's passed away.
Or what about
love-
the
yeah.
backstory between
I love Bridget
him and?
Monahan too. I think she's a phenomenal actress, but I think she's passed away.
Oh, okay.
But I know what you're saying. The romantic interest, I think, again, if this was like, say, our good guy typical action movie, yes, we'd flash back. There'd be new scenes in every movie. I just don't feel like beating the audience over the head with that is really what we're trying to say. It's about grief, and it's the chance to experience grief. I'm sure we've all had a bad day or lost someone or lost something that we care about, and we've all needed time to recover from that. I think the universe takes and gives as it sees fit, but how we react to it is ours. It's a very private thing. So once you lose something, and if you were robbed of that time to grieve, to express yourself, I think that would be more frustrating than even the act of losing. And I think that's what's important here, and what John's trying to get, and that's his main motivation. So rather than do a flashback or something like that and bring back an image of his wife, I kind of chose to be a little bit more symbolic and go with the ring. So what John does in the Elder's Tent is more symbolic of giving away the last thing he has, or the last part of John versus that, which is the ring. And I think, you guys got it, right? All right. So I don't think you have to beat the audience too much over
I was in the bathroom for that part. That's why I missed that little
Don't
segment.
worry, Blu-ray.
I
Don't
left right after the desert. I had to pee. I couldn't hold it. But what about Halle Berry's backstory? Do you think? I mean, it seems like she has something going on with John Wick. Are we going to see more of that, or is she done? Is this over?
You know what? Those are all good questions.
Yeah.
I truly do not know. I like Sophia. I think it's a great character. Again, an overall answer to a lot of the questions you guys may have is, as a director, you come back and, it's funny. I learned from the Wachowskis when they were doing the second Matrix. I was really happy to come back and do it. It was something I was very proud to be part of. And they looked miserable. And I was like, what's up? And they were like, curse of the sequel, curse of the sequel. Like, how do you be original the second time over and give everybody what we love, or what we loved about the first Matrix? How do you get that feeling, that nostalgic feeling of, wow, I was really impressed, do it again, and then make it different? Because if you do the exact same thing, it doesn't have the same impact, and you're like, well, they just copied themselves. So not only do I try to do different set pieces, I try to do different storytelling devices. Flashbacks of symbolism, flashback, that kind of thing. And if you're going to do, any kind of romantic lead or bring back characters, like I love Common from the second movie. I love my cast from the second film. I love John Leguizamo. I love that. It's just, I don't want to be stretching and trying to use some cheap device. Like, you don't think there was people talking about, well, why don't you just kill another dog? Like, for me, you get one puppy a career.
Yeah.
And I had mine. So you don't want to keep tugging on that. But also, it's the same thing. I don't want to keep tugging on this thread of wife or grief. Like, you have to create new motivations as you go if you can continue a franchise. And that's, I wouldn't say the struggle, but the challenge. If we were to continue this universe in any way, or number 3 is just, how do I get the same things across to you guys and make it fresh or make it new, or give you something to think about? And that's always the, I guess that's what we think about most when we're trying to write the story.
Okay. And the glass house scene.
We have to get to the next person. I'm not trying to be difficult. Just we're running out
I'll
of
talk
time.
to you in the parking lot. It'll be great.
Just wondering, do you think John Wick could have killed Thanos better than the Avengers?
Oh. Is that a question?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And was there ever a second name of the chapter other than Parabellum? Did you ever have
It's funny. I have a fetish with Latin. I like Latin phrases. I like the etymology of our language and how to say things with words, because I think that's a big thing. Whenever you're writing or trying to get ideas, sometimes the lack of saying something is stronger than saying something. Sometimes the way you say something, or the how you say something, or the what you're trying to say comes across in different ways. And language is our main tool for that. So to understand it, I think, is very important for anybody that wants to get into writing of any kind. It was, let's just say it was a bit of a struggle when you're starting or developing a project to reach an agreement with the people that are handling the financials of it. And at a certain point where I was very frustrated, and I just kept writing Parabellum, CViz pack on Parabellum on my thing. And it was my little way of saying, yes, I will go to war for what I believe in. And we're like, yeah, sounds good. But it's also, I wanted to differentiate, we call them chapters, so it's not just John Wick, John Wick 2, John Wick 3. And I wanted to give, the Dennis Miller in me wanted to give everybody a chance to go learn something. So I think everybody should learn a little Latin. So Parabellum. Now, who here doesn't know what Parabellum means? It's for war. It's, and if you went and learned the whole phrase, see this pack on Parabellum, you learned a little something, and now you've associated the word with John Wick 3. So it's a bit of branding and marketing as well. Sure.
Hi, thank you so much for this wonderful film.
Thanks.
I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your journey from stuntman to second unit director to directing some of the best action films of the century.
We have that kind of time.
Brief overview, maybe.
Thanks. I honestly, I'm sitting here. I was sitting there last week. Now I'm sitting here. I don't know. It's like anything in your life. I don't think it was really a career choice or anything like that. I grew up in Palmer, Massachusetts, little town. Went to school at USC. I wanted to be a doctor.
Fight on.
And then I started doing martial arts when I was 10. I started doing some judo and some karate and all that stuff. And there wasn't much to do in that little town. Came to USC, and my roommate was actually in the film school. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You can major in film? Like, I grew up doing construction and farming. So, okay, that seemed like a pretty good major. Literally got into kickboxing and doing some martial art exhibitions, was recognized by, I did an exhibition bout in Hollywood, and some stunt coordinators were the audience and said, hey, would you be interested in being in a really low budget film doing some martial arts? I said, well, okay, I'll try it. It sounded fun. I was only 20 years old at the time. And I made a lot more money not getting hit than I did getting hit in the head, so I thought that was pretty cool. And literally, I fell in with the right people. I love movies. I've always loved movies since I was, a kid with my dad on Sundays watching old James Bonds and Steve McQueen's and Charlie Bronson's. I mean, I grew up watching Clint Eastwood and the Sergio Leone films. Loved Asian cinema. I mean, my friend here, Ron, we were always sneaking down to Santa Monica to Laemmle Theater before anybody knew this guy named Jackie Chan, watching that. And that kind of just, you fall in love with that. And then, I don't know, it's one of those random things. I grew up loving museums. I love architecture. I love Renaissance art. I love classical music. I love modern music. And I don't know, you like to create. I like sitting here talking with you guys. And when someone offers you a job where you can do all of it and they'll pay you, I mean, you jump at it, and sooner or later you sit here after you put all that time in going, holy shit, it actually kind of worked. I wish I could say it was all by choice and design, but it was mostly through luck and passion, I guess. And I more than anybody, the greatest gift I probably ever had is I had great mentors. I had a stunt coordinator mentor that was one of the greatest in the business, R.A. Rondell. He was phenomenal. I came up with the Wachowskis. I mean, that's film school for the extreme. I don't know if anything about that whole thing, but that's amazing. I mean, they're geniuses. One of my friends was Brandon Lee growing up. Got on great with him, and that was a great experience as well. Dan Inosanto was my martial arts coach to this day, one of the most legendary martial artists of all time. And then, where I'm at now, my best friend Dave Leitch has just directed Hobbs and Shaw, Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde. I just very fortunate to have the people I have around me that guide me through all this stuff.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
So, with that comment earlier just about John Wick and Thanos and all that, how John Wick has kind of crossed over into like the pop culture, and in that sense, it's like it's kind of a joke, or it's funny that he's crossed over talking about like the Marvel universe. But have you considered, or maybe what would even be the logistics of John Wick appearing in other franchises like maybe Fast and Furious, Expendables, Kingsman? Have you considered anything like that?
I haven't. Personally, I'm just concerned about the John Wick universe and making something entertaining for you guys. But I'm sure there are forces out there that consider stuff like that and do what's the key word nowadays? Psychoanalytics of what that means marketing-wise and legalities. I'm sure that's something somewhere. But I'm more concerned with doing some original content.
Cool.
I'm also wondering about John Wick versus Godzilla.
Exactly.
I
there's
think
a lot
he's
of
got a
face-offs.
chance.
Let me tell you something. You can't go wrong with adding Godzilla to any movie or John Wick.
Come on, who loves God? I love God. Who doesn't love Godzilla, right? Yeah. I love Godzilla.
Next question.
Hi. So you mentioned earlier that every day you'd show up to set scared almost to the point of crapping your pants.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know.
Halfway
for each
there
of the
now.
3 movies. What's that? It's happening now. I just want to know for each of the 3 movies, when was your first sort of moment of composure where you could step back from the chaos and sort of accept your success?
Ooh, success. Evil word. Still waiting. I think when you're in it, you don't really think so much like that. I mean, you kind of get caught up. Like I'm masochistic, so I read like every review of all my films and all stuff. I'm even reading the ones I should be checking right now. That's a little crazy. I just like knowing. I don't know. You're kind of in it. You just want to. You get caught up in the passion of it. If you like to paint, you're gonna paint. Whether somebody says it sucks or it doesn't suck, you're gonna paint. It's just what you have to do. I like the business I'm in. I like what I do. I'm like with the people I am. I like trying to tell a story. I like making pretty pictures. I don't know how to stop. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't. If the financial success was much less than it currently is, and I couldn't make another movie that was as big budget as what this one was and stuff, I'd make a $5 million movie as best I could. I'd make $1 million movie as best I could. I'd make a movie with my iPhone the best I could. I would find a way. It's just, I love the act of working with my stunt team. I like choreography. I would, still be teaching martial arts or still be working with my stunt team. I'd still be shooting something with some device that I could, So I think that's the important thing. And if, you're doing things that people love, you'll find an audience. I don't think you go look for the audience first. I don't think you go try to calculate how to do it. And if you do manage to get something that people like and you do find a bit of what you'd term success, I guess you smile, you thank the people that helped get you there, and you try again. That's about all you can do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hello. So I love John Wick so much and the whole franchise that I got a tattoo on my arm about 2 years ago.
Great. Did you
It's
spell my
John
name
Wick,
right?
It's right before he kills Yusuf Tarazov in the first film. Is there a specific reason why almost everyone has tattoos?
I think if you look at the tattoos, especially in number 3 here, and you look at who wears them and what they say, there's enough hints in there between the props that I've used in the director's abode in the theater and the tattoos to kind of give you a little backstory of John. Again, I'm from the show Don't Tell school of showing, so if you really want to know backstory, it's there. You just got to look for it. But I'm not going to have the scene with the 2 CIA guys with the folder going, John Wick, he served in Nam. And I think that's a cheesy way of telling how badass somebody is. If you can't tell Keanu Reeves is badass by now, I don't know what to do.
I can tell.
So if you want to see backstory and stuff like that, I don't think I need to have a scene of Keanu moping on about, when I was this back in when I was 12. And so the tattoos those are all very planned. They're made from scratch. Steve Kelly, my makeup and tattoo guy, we put those together with Russian, Latin. There's a little history on John Wick's tattoo. So if you look at it, it tells a pretty good story. You should be able to piece together where he's from, where he's going, who he is, why he's done what he's done just by his back tattoo. And I think if you look carefully into the other tattoos in certain scenes, a little bit of Googling, I think you figure things out.
Yeah, I was just curious about the phone tellers and all of that too.
I just like the symbolism. Again, I like visual things, and what's a good visual representation sometimes is I like the tats. Sometimes I think they can be very creatively fun.
I think you should show Chad the tattoo, just for the hell of
Yeah,
it.
go ahead.
Can you see it?
Is John Wick walking at me or walking away from me?
He's walking at you.
Oh, right on.
No, I was going to say you should come down.
You can come down
and show
show me.
Chad. You can come closer.
Yeah. No dogs got hurt here.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Yeah, it is. And he's got the turtleneck.
Yeah.
What we call the tactile neck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm flattered. Thank you.
We could ask you a million other questions, but I think you have a full day of press tomorrow and even more press the day.
Where's the guy that's cutting it off? Do I got 5 more minutes? I got 5. Okay, go ahead. Ask another question.
Oh, do we have? Is there a few more people that
If
have?
there's anybody else with a question, I'll ask.
Do you mind going over there with a microphone?
Oh, I was.
It was a little bit more work to make it. You can make the few steps over.
Right.
So I absolutely loved the movie. It was fantastic, and
Thank
my
you.
roommate just got me into the whole John Wick verse, and it's amazing. I just finished on a TV show that I worked on, and I was there for 2 years, and I just declined a renewal for my contract for the next year. So I'm kind of nervous.
So
and
you're saying you're available?
I am, but I just wanted to ask you, do you still get nervous between jobs? How do you tackle that? How do you go for that?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't. You get to a point where you're not really concerned about what to do next. I don't know. I at least me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things I want to do, so I always kind of point together. I never really get nervous. I'm not worried about I'm technically unemployed in 3 days.
Yeah.
So I don't really get stressed out by it. I mean, there's so much to do, and so many things to research, and again, I could watch musicals all day, or I could research Sergio Leone, or I could just go try to learn another language or take a trip. There's always research to be done to create an original story. If you have passion in something like that, whatever your field is, if you're writing, directing, whatever, there's no way better to practice it than just go do it. So if you're writing, go write. If you're doing something you don't like, well, go find something you like to do, and you better work at it. But yeah, no fear, man. You can't have any fear. Don't let fear stop you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bet.
Hello, it's me again.
Hi, good to see you.
So about like the glass house scene, how many days of shooting was that? Is
9.
anything have to 9?
9 days from
9
start to
days.
finish with the acting scenes. Yeah.
And the glass, like, could you put it back in, or is that one take? Those glass part, I mean, the breaking.
No, well, there's not enough glue to put them back together.
Well, no, like they bring in another, like they built.
We bring
more.
in another ones. Yes, we had
You did?
enough
Okay.
for two. Again, I have a great stunt team. The most we ever had to do, I think, 1 gag twice, but everything else was pretty much one takers.
Wow.
We rehearsed quite a bit, but when you see the long take with the 7 breaks, that's the real deal.
Okay.
That's a group of stunt guys that just know how to do it.
Wow.
I'm also gonna chime in and say I was on set for one of the Glass House days, and I watched Keanu get thrown into one of those glass cases and hit the ground. I mean, it must have been 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, Keanu's different. I'll go a lot with Keanu.
But it was I couldn't believe what I was watching in terms of him constantly getting pushed against that thing. I was blown away. I am curious though what your question was. Forget about standing up. Do you want to say it?
Sure. I was just going to ask, how do you choose all the guns and the weapons and the modifications? And I know you work with like one certain guy. Why do you choose him?
You mean the stunt team or the cast? Or?
I got to repeat the question though, so people online can hear it. Yeah, how do you choose the guns and the modifications?
Yeah, like the cool stuff.
Mhm.
Like one of my favorite things was like John Wick 2 was like when he like put checks like with one hand.
Chamber
I was
checks,
just like, oh my god, like that was so so press check. Sorry, so I was just
Yep.
wondering, like how do you?
Do you want to repeat that, or you want me to just?
Oh God, no, that is
Okay.
too much for me. But also
Talking about where we come up with some of the intricacies of the gun fu, chamber checks, and why I choose certain weapons, and how the different manipulations work in terms of props and techniques and all that, right?
and the
This was like the first movie that I ever seen.
Yeah, no, it's pretty funny. You want to add something?
I just wanted to say that with what Keanu is able to do in real life with guns and reloading is unbelievable. Like it's crazy.
Again, it's funny. John Wick seems so hyper real and fantastical and all this stuff, like it's a fantasy land. That's the way the real guys really shoot people. Like they don't mess around. You don't wing somebody in the arm. They don't shoot with one hand. I shoot competitively with Taron Butler. I actually enjoy doing 3-gun, which is, for people that know, it's pistol, rifle, shotgun. I shoot with a Glock, a Benelli, and in something called a SIG MPX for a rifle. Same things that Keanu uses in the movie. You guys know in real life you do run out of bullets, right? And you have to. Okay, well, most action movies don't address that fact. Simple reasons. 1, it slows things down. And 2, if you see or if you ever get the chance, for those of you that do shoot or have trained, it's difficult. It's not easy. Sometimes it's slow and awkward, and it takes training. You can't just go bang, 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 bang. Like, you actually got to have hand-eye coordination. We decided we're going to let that go. We're going to show real time. When you see him adjusting straps on the MPX, or probably the hardest thing that if anybody with any background in firearms knows, with the shotgun, he's doing something called quad loading. He's actually doing it. And for anybody that's actually tried that, you actually take 4 12-gauge shells out and hold them between your thumb and forefinger. So you're holding 4 rounds at a time. You see him slide twice. Go online, Google 3-gun championships or shotgun competitions, and you'll see quad loading, and it's incredibly difficult. And Keanu trained months and months and months just for the 5% of the audience that actually knows what that is. That's just the kind of guy he is. He'll also shoot right-handed and left-handed. He'll do reloads right-handed, left-handed. He does strap adjustments left-hand, right. Anyone in the military or law enforcement or competitive shooting worlds would know, and that's just part of our thing. If you know anything about real jiu-jitsu or real judo, you'll see him doing things in here that for the regular people or the non-martial art people, it looks like the same throw over and over again. To any of us that have been in it, it's like, holy shit, he's doing that too? Holy, wow, that's impressive. And he's doing both hands, both sides. That's the guy he is. He wants to go all in, all out on it. And the weapons we choose are usually the ones that we technically, even the 2011 is something we compete with the 9mm Major, which is a new kind of ammunition fairly in the last decade or so it's really come up across. And then the Benellis and the shotguns. And so everything we use is stuff we actually practice with in our real lives. So that's kind of how we find it.
I want to just do a follow-up, which, by the way, it's again, crazy what Keanu does and being all real. But there's a sequence, no spoilers, of course, where Keanu is picking out some guns, taking one apart, taking parts from one to the other. Where'd that idea come from, and how tricky is it to film something like that?
You guys know who Eli Wallach is? All right, so you know Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Yep. It's a scene we ripped off from Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I try to rip off from the best. That's my gig. A huge fan of Sergio Leone and Eli Wallach. We thought that's fun. Well, if Keanu's so good with the automatic and modern weapons, why wouldn't he be good with period piece stuff? And that's a big guy. He goes in, he's got one bullet. The bullet doesn't fit. So rather than find another bullet, he builds his own gun. I haven't got called on yet, and any reviews haven't called me on. But that's pretty. You gonna call me on it?
No, I just have a question.
Go ahead, ask.
Is the canted pistol? Is like the canted pistol stance based off of center axis relock, or is it just more of a stylish design?
No, it's center axis relock. That's where we found it. And we trained with everything from LA SWAT to some of the Navy SEALs to Special Forces, JSOC, to Russian Spetsnaz, to all this other stuff. And then we kind of create our own. Obviously, there's no such thing as gun fu. You don't do Aikido and Aikijitsu and Judo and then shoot yourself and the guy. Okay, so that's a creative liberty we took. But yeah, it's based on that. But then it's Keanu doing his own thing.
But then when is his like the character's motivation to use center axis versus isosceles or Weaver?
Close quarter and motion. It's always about motion. When you don't know the environment, it's very easy to stand and shoot a target. It's a lot different when you're moving through crowds and you don't know who's on your side. Like in real life, the bad guys aren't wearing a big sign that says "bad guy," so you got to be ready to move.
Does it give him a faster reload as well? Or?
It depends. Like Keanu and I are both left-handed, but we both shoot right-handed, and we're somewhat ambidextrous with our reloads. So for Keanu, he's trained on both sides. When he goes like that, he can easily shift the gun to either hand. Yeah.
On that note, I'm going to force you.
You got a little geeky there, I know.
Listen, no. Actually, I love that shit. That's great. But I want the studio will. You need to what we call leave. So I'm just going to say that. I want to, and I mean this sincerely, a huge thank you to Lionsgate for letting us screen the movie early. A huge thank you to IMAX for being such an awesome partner and for providing such an incredible format for the movie-going experience. Again, John Wick 3 will be in IMAX theaters this Friday for 1 week, and the format's incredible, and I can't recommend it enough. Chad, congratulations on the movie and your 95% score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Thank you.
Wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much for doing the Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Steve, and thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.